Hey everybody, welcome to Neurodivergent Gaming. I'm your host, Tailgate Coolie Cat Meow, and you know what we got going on over here? High scores and low dopamine. Let's go! Alright, continuing on, and it's another 10 by 10. We see a 10 here, we see an 8 here, we know that's going to overlap. We see a 6, we know that's going to overlap, and if it includes this square, it'll only go back this far. It can't reach here. We have an 8. We know that's going to overlap. And these first numbers are 1s for all of these rows. Therefore, we need to section these off because we can't have a filled in square on either side of that. That would make that a 2. For this row, all of the numbers are 1, so we're going to separate those off as well. And then for these rows, the last number is 1, so we need to separate this off. So because we have this edge done, we can see where that next number starts. This next number is a 4. 1, 2, I forgot to switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we know this 3 starts here. 1, 2, 3. And that 4 starts here. 1, 2, 3, 4. For this one, we know that next number here is a 2. And then we just have a 1 left. So if we leave that space, then we know that 1 comes here. It's the only place that that fits. Now let's look at this column. That 6 is our first number. It can't go down any further, so it has to go up and fill in that area. And then for this column, that last number is a 5. It can't go up, it has to go down. And we know that this is part of our 5 because it's more than 1, and there's only 1s in that row besides that 5. Here we have a 5 and a 4, and we know exactly what that looks like on a 10 by 10 grid. There's only one way it fits. And then here we have a 1 is our first number for this column. So let's mark that 1 off. And then for the 2, we're going to have overlap. Then we can look here on this row. We have the edge done, so we know where that 3 starts. 1, 2, 3. And then we have the other edge done too, so we know the 4 starts here and goes left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that finishes those. For this one, we know that that 7 has to go down. It can't go up. So that completes the 7, and there's just 1 remaining for that column. For this column, we have a 6 followed by a 2. We know where that 2 starts. We'll count it down to there. For this column, that first number is a 1, so we'll mark it off. And then this next number is a 2 in this column. We see where it starts, so we'll bring it down. Then across this row on the top, we have a 1, 3, 1. We've already got our 3. There's only 1 space available to the right and 1 space available to the left. And that looks like a man with a stick through his eye. That's a Bedouin tree. Yay, we finally have a 15 by 15. Okay, so now we can look at something a little different. Okay, this one's an 11, so we're going to have overlap. If we count from the left, it reaches to here. If we count from the right, it reaches to there. We'll fill everything in the middle in. For this one, we have a 5 and a 9, and this is one of those that if you add it together and put an extra 1 in for that space, there's only one way that that fits in a row of 15, and it looks like that. The same thing with this, 11 and 1 and 1. That's 11, 12, 13, a space there for 14 and a space there for 15. A 1, 11, 1 only fits like this on a row of 15. And then here we have a 9. That'll cross over here. And that gives us an edge, so we know those first 3 numbers are 1s for these 3 columns. So we'll mark that. We have another 9 here and here, so let's go ahead and fill out the crossover in these rows. There's 9 and there's 9. Okay, now we can look at these bottom numbers here that are very large. We're going to count up from the bottom. If we start here and we counted to 8, it would go all the way to there. For this one, by counting up to 8, we can know that at least this has to be connected. If that's part of the 8, it'll be connected too, but there's a possibility it could be part of the 1, so we're going to leave it by itself. And we're going to do the same thing with the next one. If we start from the bottom, we could count up to 8, And then we know that it's going to include those pieces as well. For this one, if we start from the bottom and we count up 7, it takes us to there, letting us know that that next piece is part of the 7 as well. And if that piece is part of the 7, it won't reach all the way to the bottom, so we can put an X here. Because we put an X there, we know that this 5 can't fit where we only have 4 spaces. So let's mark those out. Then we can do the same thing for this 8 here. It'll get us up to there. And then this 8 here will get us up to there as well. And then the same for the next 2 as well. Get those 8s counted up. For this one, if we counted up 4 from the bottom, it would take us right here, but that connects directly to this piece. So that tells us that if this piece is included in that 4, it won't reach all the way to the bottom, so we can put an X there. And then again, we know this 5 isn't going to fit in that space of 4, and that only leaves 5 left on that row. That gives us an edge, so we know that that's included in our 8, and that goes up to 2. We'll put our X here, and then our X's across the top of these 8s there. Then we know that the number remaining in this column is a 2. It can't reach down here, and it won't be able to reach that far down. Now let's see. Here on this row, we have a 2 and a 6. You'll see this is a group of 4, so it can't be part of the 2. It has to be part of the 6. And it can't go further left because of that X. Therefore, we know those 2 make 6, and nothing comes after it. Now we can look at this column. That bottom number is an 8. It can't fit here. That's just one space. Now we can look at this row. That's a 9. It won't fit in that group of 2. But now the furthest right it can start is here. So if we count it over to 9, it'll include these squares as well. That gives us an edge here. We know where this bottom number starts here, and that's 4. And we know this bottom number starts here, and that's 8. We'll put an X on top of each one of those. And on this row here, all we have is 3's, and no 3 is going to fit in that space of 2. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that out. And then for this one, we couldn't fit 3 in a space before we get to this filled in square. That lets us know this filled in square is part of that first number. And if this is where it starts, it can only reach back to there. For this column, we have a 3 and then a 1. We see that we have 2 separate places here because of this space. So this has to belong to our 3. It could go all the way down to there. It could go all the way up to here. It won't be able to reach there. And then below this, all we need is 1, and we've already got 1. So we can mark all that out. That's our 1, and that's our 3. For this row, we just have one number, and we have 2 groups of numbers here, so let's connect them. And that may help us out with this column a little bit. A 2, a 1, and then a 2 coming up from the bottom. There's a 2, there's a 1, and we can't fit a 2 and a space before we get to this filled in space. Therefore, we know this is part of that 2, and that won't reach down to here. But that helps us out with this row because we have a space with numbers backed up against it. We just have 2 numbers on this row, so this 2 has to start here and go left, and then that was already 7 filled out for us. For this row, that first number is a 2. We can't fit a 2 in a space before we get into this filled in square, so that lets us know this filled in square is part of that 2, and therefore we know it won't reach back there. And I forgot to switch to my X's. Let's see what else we got. Okay, on this column, that bottom number is an 8. An 8 is not going to fit in this one space, which lets us know the lowest that that 8 can fit is here. And if we count up, that takes us to here. And because this is backed up against it, because this next square is filled in, and the only other number we have in this row is a 1, we know that these 2 and those 2 have to be part of that 8. So if we connect them, that actually gives us 8. So let's mark that off with our X's. And we don't know where that 1's going to go because there's not going to be an overlap for a 1. But here on these rows, we know 9 won't fit in that space of 1 and 9 won't fit in that space of 1. So now we know where our 9's start, and therefore we know they go to here for both of those rows. Now we have a bottom here, an edge, so we know this is where those last numbers start. This column, that last number is a 7. And the column next to it, that last number is an 8. So it'll go up one more before we put our X. Then in this row, we have a 3 and then a 3. This group of 3 isn't going to be able to move to the right any, so we know that it's going to count out that way. 3 won't fit in this space where we only have 2 squares available, so that 3 is going to go over here. Then we can look in this column. We know that that other number we have besides this one is a 3, and we can see it starts here. So that'll make 3. That gives us an edge telling us that this first 5 starts there and goes out to here. We'll put our X there to mark that off. If we come over here, we have the bottom done here. That group of 8 can't go down any further, so it has to go up. If we count up, that is what takes us to 8, and we will put an X there. And then if we look at this last column, we have a 1 already, and then we need a 3. Connecting this piece here is what's going to give us that 3. That gives us an edge, so we know this last 5 starts here and goes left. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That finishes that row. That also tells us where the next number is for these because we've got everything filled out up to this point. So the next number in each of these columns is a 2. So I'm going to put the 2's there. Put an X on top of this one, and then we can clearly see what we have left is a 1. It's got to be there. For this column, that next number is a 3. We have our 7 and 1, 2, 3. Then there will be at least one space and a 1. And for this next column, we have 8 and then a 2. So we know that that has to be blocked off. For this row, we have a 1, 7, and a 1. So if we start on the right, we know this is part of our 7, so this one empty space has to be where that 1 goes. We can see that that 7 starts here, so it'll go all the way out here. We can put an X after it because we know it won't go any further, and then there's just one space left for that 1 to go. Looking back at this column, we have a 1, a 3, and a 1, where we can see that 1, and then we have 2 here, so that has to be part of our 3, and then there's the 1. For this column, we can look and see it's the same situation. We have a 1, and then there's 2. That has to be part of our 3, and then we know where that next number starts, 2. That gives us an edge, so we know that the 2 starts there, and it will end there. And then for this column, all we have left is a 1 at the top, and there's just one space at the top. That tells us where our 9 starts, and so we'll bring it over. Then in this column, we have a 1, a 2, a 2, a 1, 2. So there's 1, there's 2, and then there is our other 2. Then we'll look at this row, a 2 and then a 1. There's only one space for that 1, and that looks like a bucket of water.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you feel like it. That's the hit. Catch you next time. Bye.